My name is Bryony Quillen. I am 37. On a Tuesday in April, I sat at a table in a title company on Pell Street and watched my mother sell the house I grew up in. I know that house. The fourth tread gives. The back bedroom window has to be lifted before it will slide. Then she reached across the table, tipped my sketchboard up, and slid my father's brass rule out of the clips on the back. He is 6 years dead. That rule has been in my hand at every house since. She set it down in front of my sister. Your sister needs a house, she said. You have a career. I put both hands flat on the table. Under that rule was a report with my license number on it and a signature I never made. One line at the bottom of the 4th page of it is the reason that house never sold. Welcome back to Porch Stories, where the daughter nobody asks turns out to be the only one who read all the way to the bottom of the page. The number on that report was $348,620. The Wyndham place across the road is 1 bedroom smaller, and it sold in February for $461,000. Subscribe before I start, because that one line sat in my hand for 5 weeks before I read it. And tell me in the comments the address of the first house you ever lived in. I want to know how many of you still have it by heart. I put a price on houses for a living. A bank will not hand anybody money for a house until a stranger has gone and looked at it. I am the stranger. I have been the stranger in this county for 15 years, and my father was the stranger here for 41 before me. He taught me the job at a counter when I was 22, and I want you standing there, because you are going to stand there again tonight. He had me out on a farmhouse on the county line holding the dumb end of the tape. I already had the description of the property. That is the paragraph that says which piece of ground on this earth we are talking about. Not the mailing address, the actual ground. I had copied it off the last report on that house, which was sitting right there in the file. He asked me where I got it. I told him. He put his pencil down. He was a man who almost never stopped moving. And when he stopped moving, you had done something. You copied a copy, he said. Then he drove me 16 miles to the courthouse basement and made me stand at the recorder's counter and ask for the book myself. Here is what the book is. Every deed a county has ever recorded lives in a numbered book on a numbered page, the way every letter in a filing cabinet lives in a folder. Nobody writes the description of a house. You copy it off the last deed, and then at the bottom, in small type, you print the book and the page you copied it out of. We sat on a bench under a window that did not open and read the real one. The real one had a line the copy did not have. A strip along the creek that had gone to the neighbor in 1971. 2 lines of type. It had been dropped out of somebody's report 30 years before. Every report since had copied that report. By then, 4 different banks had lent money against a farm that included a strip of ground it did not own. They are all wrong, and they are all wrong the same way, he said. That is what makes it look right. Then he said the thing I have said to myself at maybe 900 counters since. Go to the book, Bryony. The book does not care what everybody has been saying. He had the rule lying on the bench between us while he said it. 30 inches of it. 30 inches of brass and hard maple gone the color of tea. 6 sections. His initials are filed into the end so shallow you have to turn it to the light. There is a nick in it at the 11-inch mark. He dropped it in the driveway one morning and said a word my mother pretended not to hear. Under my hands on that bench was the board he built me, and I still carry it. Hardboard the size of a cookie sheet, a spring clip along the top. A strip of pine glued down the bottom edge so it will not slide off a porch rail. Everything for the house I am standing in rides under that clip. The rule rides in 2 clips on the back. 30 years of pencils have grooved the face of it, his and then mine. He smelled like cigarettes and crawl space that day, cold dirt and old smoke. I can bring it up in my nose right now, at will, the way some people can bring up a song. Now the second time I stood at that counter, because that one was about my mother's house. I was 26, and I had held my license 11 weeks. My parents were talking about borrowing against Sabine Road, and the order came into our office, and I told my boss to give it to somebody else. He said the somebody else was out with his back. So I went and measured the house I grew up in with my mother following me room to room. She told me the cabinets were newer than they are. She told me the roof had 4 years left on it that it did not have. When I got the tape out in the back bedroom, she said, "You know this house, Bryony." She was not wrong, and she was not asking. Then I told her I had to go down to the courthouse before I could write it up. She stopped in the doorway with a dish towel over her shoulder. "It's my house," she said. "I can tell you what's in it." I went anyway. That is the only reason any of this ended the way it did, not because I am brave, because I am the kind of dull woman who drives to the counter. I pulled the deed on Sabine Road that afternoon and read it on that same bench. It was exactly what it was supposed to be. 2 names, bought in 1981, nothing hanging off it. I copied the book and the page onto the bottom of page 4. I wrote it up. I signed it at her kitchen table, with her standing behind my chair. "That's a lot of fuss for a name," she said. "A price is an opinion, a deed is not." I had just spent an afternoon proving both halves of that sentence to myself, and I did not hear it. They never took that loan. In March, a doctor told my father what his kidneys were doing, and in May, he did something else instead. I did the right thing that day, in the right order, and it bought me nothing at all. The page that ends this story was not in that book yet. He typed it 4 months later and did not mention it to anybody. Now the house. 2-story white farmhouse on Sabine Road. 3 bedrooms up, 1 down. A porch across the front that my father rebuilt himself the summer I turned 12 and did not rebuild square. I know it is not square because I have measured it. The 4th tread gives. There is a door frame between the kitchen and the back hall, with pencil marks on it going up. My name is on that frame. My sister's name is on that frame. My brother's is on it twice because he cheated with his heels. I have put a price on that house 3 times, and you have just watched the first one. The second was at 31, 6 weeks after my father died, because my mother asked me to. She asked in a voice she has never used with me before or since. Small, almost polite. The third was at 35, when she was moving out. That was the year the family started saying the word sell at holidays. The way you say a word you are trying out. 3 times, across 9 years, my own hand, dated, in the field book that rides under the clip on my board. $348,620 is not a number that has ever come out of that house. Not once. Not in any of the 3, not on the worst day it ever had. I will be fair to both of them before this is over. I will not be fair to them equally, because they did not do equal things. My father, Winston Quillen, was quiet to the point of rudeness, he wrote, in small block capitals. He kept every field book he ever filled, and there are 61 of them in a box in my hall closet, and I have read them all. The doctor was in March. The spring I was 26, kidneys. 3 mornings a week for the last 5 years of his life, he drove himself to a strip mall between a dollar store and a nail place. He sat in a vinyl recliner for 4 hours with a machine cleaning his blood. Then he drove himself home. Twice that I know of, he did an inspection on the way, in the good shirt, with his sleeves still rolled. He died 6 years ago, in February, at 68. The last thing he ever asked me was whether the roof on the church annex was the first one or a second one laid over the top of it. It was a second one. I told him so, and he nodded like a man who had been right about something. My mother, Verity Quillen, was married to him for 44 years. She kept the books for his practice, and she answered his telephone. She has read more appraisal reports across a kitchen table than most appraisers ever write. She is 73, and she is sharp as a tack. And in 73 years, she has never once been the person whose name was on anything. Not the house, not the practice, not the truck. Her name has been beside other people's names her whole life, in the witness line, in the second column, on the envelope after the word Times, and... My sister is 2 years younger than me, and her name is Coralie. She has a 9-year-old girl and a husband who works nights and a rental on the east side, with a landlord who will not fix the back steps. She is the one who calls our mother every day. She is the one who took her in. My brother, Wilfred, is the oldest. He kept the spare key to Sabine Road and mowed that lawn every summer we were away, for 20 years, without being asked and without being thanked. After the funeral, my mother stayed on at Sabine Road alone for 3.5 years and then stopped being able to. She moved into my sister's back bedroom with a hospital bed and a recliner and a television on too loud. Sabine Road got shut up, water off, breakers off, a light on a timer in the front room. It has been empty 2 years and 4 months. I drove past it about twice a week without meaning to. It is on the way to everything. Before I take you to March, I want to give you one ordinary day. You should see me do this work properly one time before you watch what somebody did with my name. In February, I priced the Wyndham Place. It sits directly across the road from my father's house. Same year built, 1954. Same road, same well, same ditch that floods in April. It has 1 bedroom fewer than ours and a carport instead of a garage. Mrs. Wyndham, who lives directly across the road from my father's house, is 81. Her husband has been dead a long time, and she was moving to her son's in Ohio, and she did not want to. She had cookies out. They always have cookies out, and you always have to take one. Her kitchen smelled like almond extract and furnace dust, that hot metal smell. A house gets the first winter nobody opens a window. I measured the outside first, which is how it is done, walking the wall with the tape and calling the corners. Then the inside. She followed me room to room with her hands folded and told me what her husband had done to each one. In the back bedroom, I got down on the floor to check where the addition tied into the original. You can always tell at the floor. She stood in the doorway and said, "Nobody has looked at this house that hard since we bought it." I wrote it up that night. I found 3 sales that actually looked like her house, on roads that actually looked like her road. I put $461,000 on it. I signed my name to that. It sold at that number in 12 days. The buyers are a young couple with a dog. She got her money and went to Ohio and hated it. She came back 4 months later and rented a place 2 miles down, which is how I still know her. That is the job. A stranger walks in, gets down on the floor, and tells one old woman the truth about the only thing she owns. 3 weeks later, somebody put my name on a piece of paper. It said the house across the road from that one was worth $112,000 less, now the Thursday in March. I was on my back in a crawl space under a farmhouse out past the reservoir, 4 inches of clearance, a flashlight in my teeth. Somebody had bolted a new beam alongside a rotten one down there and not told anybody about it. Crawl spaces smell like wet paper and cold clay. They smell like the inside of a closed jar, and like every secret a house is keeping from the person about to buy it. My phone rang against my hip. I got out, which takes a minute, and called the number back sitting on the tailgate with my sleeves full of dirt. It was a young man at a bank 2 counties over. He had a pleasant telephone voice, and he was reading off a screen. He said he was calling about my report on the property at Sabine Road, and he had a question about the outbuilding. I want to tell you exactly what my body did, because it did it before I did. My ears went hot. Not my face, my ears. And my hand went out and put itself flat on the tailgate the way you do on a boat. I asked him to say the address again. He said it again. I asked him what date was on the report. He told me a date in the last week of February. I sat on that tailgate and looked across a field at nothing. Then I said, in the same pleasant voice he was using, that I would have to call him back. I have been doing this for 15 years. In 15 years, I have never had a moment where the ground under a sentence just was not there. If you have ever found out about your own business from a stranger being polite to you on the telephone, tell me about it in the comments. I would like to know I am not the only one who sat down where she was standing. And subscribe, because 4 days later a copy of that report came to me in an email. My name was on it in 2 places. I put neither one there. Here is what an appraisal order looks like from the inside, and I promise this is short. I do not get work from banks directly. Almost nobody does anymore. There is a company in between. They take the bank's order. They pick somebody off a list, they send it out, they collect the report, they pass it along. Every order that has ever come to me has come through them. Every one of them is a line in a log with my license number on it. That log is not mine. I cannot edit it. It sits on their computer and it goes back 11 years. I called them on the Friday. The woman who runs scheduling there has been on the other end of my telephone maybe 400 times, and I have never once seen her face. I did not have to explain much. I got out about 2 sentences, and she stopped me. "Tell me what you need pulled," she said. "That is the whole reason I am able to tell you this story. Not a lawyer, a woman at a desk who did not make me say the humiliating part out loud. She pulled my assignment history for the last 12 months and read it to me while I stood in a parking lot. There was no order for Sabine Road. Not a canceled one. Not a reassigned one. Not one with a typo in the address. So I asked her to stop looking for my name and look for the address instead, across every appraiser on their panel. Nothing. No order for that house went out to anybody, from anybody, ever, which told me the thing I did not want to know. A report existed, a bank had it, and it had never been ordered. "Bryony," she said. "Somebody made that." I asked her to send me the log as a document with the date on it. She had it in my email in 9 minutes. That page went under the clip on my sketchboard that afternoon, and it did not come out again until the end of this story. Then I read the report. It came from the young man at the bank, forwarded without comment, 38 pages, the way they all are. My license number, correct, all 7 digits. My name, spelled right. My signature at the bottom of the last page. It is not a bad forgery. It is not a forgery at all. A hand does not make the same signature twice. Mine wanders. That one is the same as the one on my renewal card, down to the place the pen skipped over a fiber in the paper. Nobody drew it. Somebody lifted it off a piece of paper I had already signed and dropped it on the bottom of that page. I have signed 1,000 things in that woman's presence. My mother kept the books for a man who signed his name 12 times a day for 41 years. Of course she knows how to move a signature. The effective date was a Thursday in the last week of February. $450 had come out of somebody's account to make that page exist. I was in Illinois that week at my aunt's. I can prove it with a hotel and a tank of gas. I have never once in my life had to prove where I was to anybody. The number was $348,620. I want you to hear the 20, because the 20 is the tell. Nobody guesses a number that ends in 20. A number that ends in 20 got worked backward from something. From a payment somebody could carry. From a loan somebody could qualify for. And then it got dressed up in a suit. The Wyndham place is across the road. Same road, same year built, same well, and it has 1 bedroom fewer than ours. It sold in February for $461,000. I know, because I priced it. I sat across from Mrs. Wyndham at her kitchen table with a plate of cookies I did not want, and I signed it, and my number held. That is $112,000 more, for less house, on the same road, in the same month. The 3 houses that report used to justify itself were not on that road. One was 11 miles out with no water on it. One had a mobile home on the parcel. One I could not find a sale record for at all, which is a sentence that should not be possible. And on page 4, under the description of the property, in the small type at the bottom, where it always is, where I have looked 10,000 times on other people's houses, Book 187, page 44. I did not read it. I want to be honest about that. It is the worst thing I have to tell you about myself. It is also the only piece of this that is any use to you. I read the price. I read my name. I read the signature. I read the 3 sales that were not comparable, and I got angrier at each one. I went through that report the way a woman goes through a letter about herself. I read the parts that were about me, and I skipped the furniture. Book and page is furniture. It is the most furniture thing on the entire document. It is the line I copy without thinking on every job I do. The way you sign a credit card slip. It was in my hand for 5 weeks. Now the phone call to my mother. And I am not going to dress this up either. I called her the following Friday night. I had it in front of me. I had the log from the scheduling woman in front of me. I had decided in the truck to be calm, and I was calm, and it did not help me one bit. I said somebody had put my license number on a report about Sabine Road. She said, well, they had to put something. Not a denial, not a question, not who did that. They had to put something. I asked her who ordered it. I did, she said. It's my house. I decide who lives here. I asked her whether she understood that my name was on it. And she said the sentence this whole story is built on. Flat, reasonable, slightly tired. The voice of a woman explaining that the milk is in the refrigerator. Your sister needs a house. You have a career. Then she asked if I was coming Sunday, because my sister was doing a ham. I sat in my truck in my own driveway for a while after that. The dome light was on. Both my hands were on the wheel of a truck that was not going anywhere. Here is what she had done, laid out flat. She had ordered a report on a house. She had put her dead husband's daughter's license number on it. Our county has 41,000 people in it. Everybody at that bank and that title company knows the name Quillen means houses. She had bought the number she needed, low enough that my sister could carry the payment, high enough not to look like a gift. And she had bought my name to sit under it like a chaperone. And then she had invited me to the closing. That is the part I still cannot get all the way around. She invited me. She wanted me in the room. I understand it now. She did not want my signature. She wanted my body in a chair. She wanted the room to hold a Quillen who prices houses while a report signed Quillen lay on the table. Then nobody would ever have to ask a second question about it. She brought me to stand next to my own name. There is something true about my mother that does not help me one bit. I am going to say it anyway. Leaving it out would make this an easier story than it is. My mother was 9 years old in a rented house on Bellefonte Street when a man in a suit came on a Sunday afternoon. Her mother had lived in that house 19 years. She had put a garden in. She had painted every room in it twice. For 19 years, she paid the man who owned it, in cash, on the 1st of every month. She had a cigar box full of receipts. Not one of them was a deed. They put the furniture on the lawn. On a Sunday, with the neighbors coming home from church. My mother has told me about the Davenport on the grass maybe 6 times in my life. She has never once told it the same way twice. That is how you know a thing is true and not a story. 19 years and never on the paper. That is where she got it. That is the truest thing I know about her. It is why the word times, my times, comes out of her the way it does. My house, my kitchen, my table. She says it the way a woman holds a railing. And she still put my name on a page I never saw. Both of those are the whole size they are. Neither one shrinks the other. Let me tell you what I did with the 3 weeks between that phone call and that table. It is the only funny thing in this story, and it is not very funny. I went to work. I did 4 inspections that week, and a 5th on the Saturday. A split level with a wet basement. A rental duplex on Ferris. 2 farm properties out toward the county line, both for the same buyer, both fine. 5 houses, 5 trips to that counter. 5 times my thumb went down the bottom of page 4 on a stranger's property. Not once did it occur to me to do it on the one riding in my truck with my own name on it. I have thought about that a great deal. I think it is because I had already decided what the story was. The story was times she put my name on a lie about the price. I was a woman with a grievance. A woman with a grievance reads for the grievance. Your sister needs a house. You have a career. That sentence had a hook in my mouth and I let it walk me for 3 weeks. Before the table, though, I went out to the house. It was the 1st of April, a Saturday, gray, the kind of cold that gets in through your cuffs. I have a key. I have had a key since I was 15. There was a lockbox on the front door. You have seen them. A gray steel box hanging off the knob with buttons on it that holds a key inside so that people with a code can get in. My family had put a lockbox on Sabine Road, and I did not have the code. My key still worked, because nobody had thought about me enough to change the lock, so I let myself into a house I could not get into. Inside it was 51 degrees and smelled like cold plaster and mousebait, and, underneath that, very faintly, still, cigarettes. A closed-up house has a smell that is not dirt and is not damp. It is the smell of air that has not been asked to do anything for 2 years. I walked it the way I walk any house, because I do not know another way to be in a room, kitchen, back hall, the door frame with the pencil marks. The fourth tread gave under me the way it has given under me since I was 6. I went up and stood in the back bedroom, which was my room. I lifted the window, because it has to be lifted before it will slide. Then I stood there, with my hand on the sash. That is when the anger arrived, and it was not about me at all, because I had done the arithmetic on the drive out, and I did not like the shape of it. My sister was about to borrow $348,620. Her husband works nights. Her landlord will not fix her back steps. She has a 9-year-old. I have been in this business 15 years. I could not make that payment work on that income on any piece of paper in any month of any year. The low number was not a kindness to my sister. It was the smallest number a bank would say yes to. That is a different thing wearing the same coat. $348,620 against $461,000 for a smaller house across the road. And my name under it, saying that, was honest work. I stood at that window with my hand on the sash, and I heard it again in my mother's voice, in the reasonable one. The milk is in the refrigerator one. Your sister needs a house. You have a career. A price is an opinion. A deed is not. I did not know yet what that second sentence was going to cost her. I was still standing at that window when a car came up the drive. It was Coralie, with my mother in the front seat and Louisa in the back, out to show the girl her room. My sister came in the kitchen door with a roll of blue tape in her hand and stopped when she saw me. Neither of us said anything at all for about the length of a held breath. Louisa, my sister's girl, came around her legs. "Is this the room I get?" She said. She was standing at the bottom of the stairs looking up at me, 9 years old, in a coat too big for her, in a house her family did not own. I said it was a good room. I said the window sticks and you have to lift it. She went and lifted it. My mother came in behind them with her hand on the door frame and looked around the kitchen and said, "Well, it wants paint." Nobody said one word about the report. We stood in that kitchen for 6 minutes and talked about paint. That is the thing nobody tells you about families like mine. There is no confrontation. There is a kitchen and a roll of blue tape and a woman saying it wants paint, and you go home. Subscribe if you are staying. 17 days after that kitchen, I sat down at a table with my sketchboard in front of me, and my mother reached across it. And I still did not know the one thing about that house that would have ended all of it in a sentence. The signing was set for the 18th the morning everybody puts a pen to the papers, with the money to follow at the end of the week. My mother called and told me to come at 10, because there was something of my father's to sign. I want to be clear that I knew. I am not a stupid woman, and I had a log in a folder that said a report had been forged. I knew there was nothing of my father's to sign. I went because she said his name. That is not a flattering sentence, and I am leaving it in. Now, the 18th. Tuesday, Pell Street. The title company is on the 2nd floor over a hearing aid place, speckled carpet, and a coffee maker that has been on since 7. It smells like carpet glue and burnt coffee. Somebody in that building had put an air freshener in the stairwell that was pretending to be lilac. The room had 4 chairs. There were 5 of us. I counted the chairs from the doorway, the way I count everything from a doorway. 4 chairs. Somebody had worked out how many of us were coming, and somebody had not counted me. My mother, my sister, my brother Wilfred, who drove them, me, and the escrow officer, which is the woman who runs a closing the neutral one, the one who does not work for either side. Her name is Lilias Yarborough, and I had never met her before that morning. She is the reason my father's sentence got said out loud in a room. My brother got a folding chair out of the hall for me. I wanted on the record that he did that. I sat down, and I put my sketchboard on the table in front of me. That is not a statement. That is just what I do. I have set that board down on 10,000 kitchen tables and countertops and the hoods of trucks. My hands do it without me. My sister's loan packet was on the table. The report was on top of it, 38 pages, my name on the front. I asked my sister if I could look at it. She pushed it across without a word and would not look at me. And I have thought about that particular not looking a great many times since. And then my mother reached across the table, tipped my sketchboard up off the wood, and slid my father's brass rule out of the clips on the back. She held it a second, 30 inches of brass, tarnished, his initials filed into the end, that hairline nick at 11 inches from the driveway. She set it down in front of my sister. "Your sister needs a house," she said. "You have a career." I put both hands flat on the table. Nobody in that room said anything. My brother looked at the window. Lilius Yarborough, the escrow officer, looked down at her file, the way a professional looks down when a family does something in front of her. And I did the only thing I have ever known how to do in a room that has gone wrong. I read the paper. I turned to page 4, because that is where the description of a property sits. I ran my thumb down to the small type at the bottom. I have run my thumb down that page 10,000 times in 15 years. Book 187, page 44. I did not know that book. I did not know that page. I have pulled every deed on Sabine Road that I ever needed, and none of them lived there. The report my mother paid for was printing the directions to a piece of paper I had never read. I took out my field book from under the clip. I turned to the page for Sabine Road, the page that already had 3 measurements on it in my own pencil, dated across 9 years. On the facing page, in the same pencil, I wrote a book number and a page number. Then I closed it, and I put it back under the clip, and I said thank you to the escrow officer for her time. My mother asked where I was going. I said I had a 2 o'clock. I did have a 2 o'clock. That is the last thing I ever said to my mother that was entirely true and entirely useless. Nothing at that table needed me. My mother signed, my sister signed. The escrow officer stacked it, told them the money would come Friday morning, and put a rubber band around the file. I had been invited to a signing where there was no paper with my name on it. That was the point. I was the paper. My brother caught me in the parking lot. My brother is 51 years old, and he mowed that lawn for 20 years, and he has never asked anybody for anything. He stood there with his hands in his jacket pockets and his shoulders up around his ears. He said it kindly. That is the part that took the skin off. "It's only a number, Bryony. Put your name on it and come eat." There it was, out of a second mouth. It came out of him the way a hymn comes out of somebody who has not been to church in 30 years, no thinking, just the tune. I asked him if he knew who ordered the report. He looked at the parking lot. "Mom's had a hard 2 years," he said. "And that is how a family votes. Not with a show of hands, one at a time, in a parking lot, kindly." I asked him one more thing before he went back up. I asked him what my sister had been told about where the report came from. He said, "Mom told her you did it as a favor." I want you to sit in that with me for a second. My sister had been carrying a piece of paper around for 2 months, believing it was a gift from me. Believing her difficult older sister, the one with the career, had gone out there on her own time. Believing I came back with a number low enough to let her in the door. That is why she pushed it across the table without looking at me. She thought she was handing back a kindness she had never thanked me for. There is no version of this where my mother did that by accident. She did not just take my name. She spent it. I did not go to the courthouse that afternoon. I did my 2 o'clock, a ranch on Coldbrook with a bad roof. I did it properly, and I want you to know that. Because it is the only professional thing left standing in this part of the story. I went the next morning at 8, when they open. The recorder's office in this county is in the basement of the old courthouse, and it smells like dust-off old paper and hot copier. There is a bench under a window that does not open. It is the same bench. The deputy at that counter is a woman named Juno, and she is 79 years old, and she has been behind it since before I was born. She knew my father. She calls me by my whole first name in a way nobody else alive does. I asked for book 187. She did not send me to a computer. She got up off her stool, which takes her a second now. She went back into the vault herself. She came out with a bound book the size of a car door. She set it on the counter in front of me and turned it around so it faced me right way up. "Your daddy sat on that bench," she said. Page 44 is a deed. It was recorded on the 4th of May, 11 years ago, at 20 minutes after 9 in the morning. It is one page. My father typed it himself. I knew that before I read a word of it, because of the block capitals in the margin where he had corrected the spelling of a road. He conveyed the property on Sabine Road, in his own words, and he kept two things back. He kept, for himself and for his wife, the right to live in that house for as long as either one of them was alive. Not the house, the right to live in it. And when both of them were done with it, the house itself, the thing, the ground, the walls, the fourth tread, went to me. His signature, the notary's stamp. And on the same page, in the witness line, in her own handwriting, my mother's name. She was standing next to him. Let me say the two halves of that plainly, because it took me sitting on that bench for a while to hold both of them at once. For 11 years, my mother has had the right to live in that house. Nobody on this earth could have put her out of it. Not me, not a bank, not a man in a suit on a Sunday. And for 11 years, she has not had the right to sell it. Not for one day, not for 1 minute, not for $348,620, and not for $461,000 either. My father did not cut her out. He built her a fence, and never told her it was a fence. That spring he was 63 years old, and driving himself to a strip mall 3 mornings a week to have his blood cleaned. And on the 4th of May he got up and put on a collared shirt. He drove 16 miles to this counter. He made sure that the woman who had watched her mother's Davenport go out on a lawn could never be put out of a house again. Then he went home and did not mention it. That is my father entire. That is the whole man in one page and one silence. I sat on that bench with a book the size of a car door in front of me. I cried in a public building for the first time since his funeral. The deputy brought me a cup of water from the cooler. She put it down next to my elbow and went back to her stool without saying anything, which was correct. A price is an opinion. A deed is not. Now let me tell you what I had. Then let me tell you what I did not do with it, because that second part is the one I would want you to have. Under the clip on my sketchboard, by that Wednesday morning, there was this: the assignment log from the ordering company, dated and printed, showing that no order for that house was ever placed at all. A copy of my license file from the state, which anybody on earth can pull. My address, my status, and every on-time renewal since I was 26. A certified copy of Book 187, page 44, which cost me $4, and which the deputy stamped and handed across the counter with 2 hands. The tax card on the property. It still shows the homestead credit, which is the little break the county gives you for living in your own house. It has run without a gap for 11 years. The county has been treating my parents' right to live there as exactly what it is the whole time. The county knew. The county has always known. Nobody in my family ever asked the county. And my field book, 1 page, 3 measurements, across 9 years, in my own pencil. That is 5 things, and they all fit under one clip. And I want to say plainly that I never once carried a box. This whole story fits between a spring clip and a piece of hardboard my father made in his shop. Now the thing I did not do. There is a complaint form on the State Appraiser Board's website, 2 pages. You describe the misuse of a license number, you attach your proof, you sign it, and you mail it. I filled it out on the Wednesday night at my kitchen table, and it took me 40 minutes, and I did it well. I have read enough of those to know what a good one looks like. I attached the log. I attached the license file. I wrote out the dates in order. Then I printed it. I put it in an envelope. I addressed the envelope and stamped it and stood it up behind the sugar bowl, which is where things go in my kitchen when they are going out, and I sat down across from it. Here is what that form does. The board opens a file. The file gets a number and a name on it. That list is published. It goes up on a website that anybody with a telephone can read, and it stays up. Not until it is resolved. It stays up. It is still there after the person is dead. My mother is 73. She has a church. She has 3 women she plays cards with on Thursdays. She has a granddaughter who is going to learn to use a search engine in about 2 years. That docket is public the day it opens, and it is still public after she is dead. I can stop the wire without printing my mother's name. That is exactly what I said, out loud, in my kitchen, to nobody, with the envelope standing behind the sugar bowl. I did not tear it up. I want to be accurate. It is in a drawer in my kitchen right now, stamped, unsent, and I know which drawer. You do not have to use every true thing you are holding. That is not weakness, and it is not forgiveness. It is knowing that some doors, once you open them, are not doors anymore, because there was a smaller one, and it was already mine. I called the bank on the Thursday morning and asked for the underwriter on the file. That is the person who decides whether the money actually goes, not the loan officer, who sells, the one who says yes or no. Her name is Lettice Woodbury, and she has a slow voice. She also has a habit I did not learn about until I sat across from her. She peels back the corner of every page before she reads it, the way you check under a bandage. I told her who I was. I told her my license number. I told her a report on her file carried my number and a signature I did not make, and that I was withdrawing it. She was quiet for a second. Then she said the sentence that ended this whole thing. I am giving it to you exactly. It is hers, and it is better than anything I could say about it. The certificate is what we lend against, not the report. Withdraw it and underwriting stops that morning. The wire never leaves the building. I asked her to say it again slower, and she did, because that is the kind of woman she is. Then she told me to bring it in person, and to bring whatever else I had. It was Thursday morning. The money was going Friday. I drove over that same afternoon. Her office is on the ground floor at the back, and there is a window in it that looks at a loading dock. I sat down across the desk from her, and I set my sketchboard down on that desk. I took the clip open with my thumb, and I did not hand her 5 things. I handed her 1, the page with my withdrawal on it, signed by me, in front of her, with the date and the time. I have put my name under things for 15 years. I know exactly what that page is worth. Then I put the rest on the desk beside it, in order, and I did not say anything while she read. She peeled back the corner of every single page before she read it. Every one. She stopped once, at the tax card, and put her finger on the homestead line and said, "How long has that been running?" I said 11 years. She wrote that down. Then she came to the log, and she stopped a good deal longer, and she turned it around on the desk so it faced her square. "Say this back to me," she said. "There is no order." I said there was no order. Not to me, not to anybody, not on any panel. She sat with that. She has a slow voice, and she got slower. "Your letter is a woman changing her mind," she said. "Underwriting can argue with a woman. This is our own system saying we never asked anybody to go out there. That is not your problem, miss. Quillen. That is somebody in this building taking a report off a countertop, and I do not have to argue with it at all." She squared the stack. "I'm going to make 1 call, and then I'm going to make 3. That is all. That is the whole climax of this story. A woman I had never met read 5 pieces of paper and made 4 telephone calls. I sat in a chair by a window that looks at a loading dock with my hands in my lap and did absolutely nothing. I want you to see what that looked like, because it is not what anybody thinks winning looks like. I did not stop that sale. I took my own name back off a piece of paper that never should have had it on. Then a stranger with a duty did the rest of it, because that is what her job is for. At 9 o'clock on Friday morning, the money was supposed to move from that bank to that title company, and it did not. The wire never left the building. My mother called me at 20 minutes after 4 that afternoon, and she did not say hello. "You killed your sister's loan the morning before she closed." I did not answer that. I am not going to answer it here either. It is the only sentence in this entire story that everybody in my family agrees on, and I have decided to let them have it. There was a second table the following week. I was not going to go. The escrow officer called me herself and asked me to. 4 chairs again. 5 of us again. My brother got the folding chair this time, which I noticed. The escrow officer had the title work in front of her, which had come back, and she did what people in her job do when a transaction is dead. She read the reason into the room. She read the vesting paragraph off Book 187, page 44, out loud, in a flat, clear, unhurried voice, the way a woman reads a departure time. Grantor reserves unto himself and his spouse a life estate. Remainder to Brian E. Quillen in fee. My father's sentence, 11 years old, said out loud, in a room by a woman who is not in my family and has nothing to gain from it. Then she closed the file and said, "There is nothing here to sell." Nobody argued with her. You do not argue with the woman who runs the closing. That is the whole point of her. My sister looked at the wall. My mother did not. My mother reached over into my sister's packet and pulled the report out of it. She went through it, standing up, with her thumb. The way you go through a bill you already know is wrong. She knew where she was going. 41 years of my father's paperwork went across her table. She went to page 4, the way you go to your own kitchen in the dark. She found the line. I watched her find it. Her mouth moved before anything came out of it, the way it does when a woman is reading a number back to herself to be sure. Then she looked up, not at me, at the escrow officer. "This came off the paper I bought," she said. That is the whole story, and my mother is the one who said it. She paid $450 for a report to sell a house. That report printed the address of the page that says she cannot sell it. Nobody else in that room had worked out how. She did not put it down. She stood there holding it. If she signs something, my mother said, if she signs, can it still go? The escrow officer said no. She said it the way you tell somebody the store is closed, no weight on it, no apology, and no second sentence for the person to climb. Then my mother sat down and looked at her hands. That is the first time in my whole life I have seen her look for somewhere to put them. Then Lilius Yarborough, the escrow officer, turned to me and said the thing that I did not know I had been waiting 2 months for somebody to say. "You're a party to this file, Miss Quillen. You can have any page in it you want." My mother said it one more time on the way out, quieter, in the hall by the elevator, like a woman closing a book. "Your sister needs a house. You have a career." And I said the only thing I have said out loud to her about any of it. "My career is the reason you still have a house to live in." She did not answer. I did not need her to. My sister came back into the room while I was getting my coat. She pushed the brass rule across the table at me with 2 fingers and did not say anything at all. 30 inches of brass, back across a table, the other direction this time. I put it in the clips on the back of my board where it goes. Let me close the books. The loan is dead. The rate the bank had promised her ran out. The money my sister had put down came back to her about $110 lighter than it went. That is what a dead deal costs a person. $450 came off my mother's card in February to a one-man shop 2 counties over that I had never heard of. Nobody gave it back. Nobody was going to. I never did find out whose hands typed those 38 pages, and I stopped wanting to know the morning the money did not move. $450 is the total price of all of this in money. Set that beside the $110 it cost my sister, and you have the whole ledger. I would rather it be small. A small bill you have to look at is remembered longer than a large one somebody else swallows. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was charged. Nobody got a lawyer. I never asked for any of that, and I would have said no if it had been offered. The complaint is in the drawer. I renew my license in October, and I will renew it on time, the way I have every year since I was 26. My mother is still in my sister's back bedroom. She has not spoken to me since the hall by the elevator. My brother texts me about the mower, and Sabine Road is empty. That is the part I did not plan for. I stopped a sale. I did not make anybody happy. There is a white farmhouse on a road I drive twice a week with nothing in it. There is a woman 2 miles away who has the right to live in it and will not. And there is a girl who turns 10 in November who asked me once which room was hers. Nobody in my family has asked me what that house is actually worth. Not one of them, not once, not in 2 months. I am the only person any of them knows who could tell them, and it has not occurred to a single one of them to ask. What they say instead, at holidays, is that your sister needed a house and I had a career. That is the version going to outlive all of us. So here is what I do now, and it is not a victory, it is a Saturday. On the first Saturday of every month, I drive out to Sabine Road with a thermos. I go in, and I open every window in that house for 1 hour. Then I close them again, and I lock the door. A closed house dies. That is not sentiment. That is my actual job. A house with no air in it goes soft in the sills and sour in the walls. You can smell it in a year and see it in 3. So I open the windows. The back bedroom one I have to lift before it will slide. Mrs. Wyndham from across the road comes over most months with 2 cups. We stand on the porch my father built out of square, and we do not talk about my family. Last month, we talked about her knee. While the air is going through, I sit on the 4th tread, which gives. I take a clean sheet out from under the clip and lay it on my board and rub a pencil flat across it. 30 years of houses come up out of the grooves, somebody's kitchen, a stair run, a porch that is not there anymore. That is the ritual. 1 hour, 12 times a year, and a woman on a step with a pencil. Somewhere in that hour I have started saying the thing my father said at a counter when I was 22, out loud, to an empty house. Go to the book. The book does not care what everybody has been saying. A price is an opinion. A deed is not. That's my story. 1 brass rule, 30 inches, with a nick at 11 inches. $348,620 on a road where the smaller house had just brought $461,000, and 1 page in a book the size of a car door that my father typed on a dialysis morning and never told anybody about. There is a house in your family that everybody has an opinion about. The one somebody is living in, the one somebody is fixing up, the one your mother says is hers. Take that as your sign, and go read the deed on it. Your county recorder has it. Most of them will show it to you on a website now, and all of them will show it to you at a counter. It is free, it takes about 10 minutes, and it will still be true on Monday. Read past the first paragraph. The part that matters is usually at the bottom. Share this with the woman whose family put her name on a document she was never shown. She thinks it is only about her name. Then come down to the comments and tell me, what does your family say belongs to whom? And has anybody ever gone and checked? And subscribe, because there are more of these, and because the quiet ones in a family are almost always the ones holding the paper. That's all of it. Thank you for sitting with me on the porch tonight. I'll see you in the next one.